Let's present this. Today we're talking about how to calculate rental return rates for your property, and I'm going to show you how I run rental return rates, run a pro forma with an Excel sheet. What I use is a Google sheet, but I'll probably send it out afterwards as an Excel sheet for properties that I personally renovate. We do obviously different scales. The example that I'm going to show you is for a single family house. Although you can duplicate everything, you can copy and paste cells through, create different formulas, and that will allow you to actually do it for a multifamily. So if you wanted to do 50 units for an apartment complex or 2 units for a duplex, you could very easily do that. Let me start by introducing myself and also Robert, who's on the line. We're glad that you're here. We're super eager to show you the method that we use to calculate. This says rental rates, but it really should be rental return rates. Utilize the comment section below if you have any questions or feedback. I know Robert is monitoring that, and so we're happy to have any questions or discussion points if you'd like. Robert is our COO. He's responsible for day-to-day operations, and he's also on the phone on the line right now to help us out. So the first thing is I'll run you through the calculator that we use. It's in essence an Excel model. It's a financial model. It's very simple. If you want to discuss other far more complicated models that talk about kind of duration of leases for multifamily, costs for the unit turns, and you want them to go specifically unit by unit by unit, they get much more complicated. If you want water flow cash, like cash payout waterfalls for investors on syndicated deals with a general partnership and a limited partnership, we can talk about those. Give me a shout, and we have those financial models that we have used for syndications in the past. But this is a very simple financial model. We make a bunch of assumptions in here. I'll run through those assumptions, but the first assumption that we make, as you see on the left-hand side of the page, is that you are using 85% debt. So your loan to value of the property is 85%. This obviously will change if you are employing the BRRRR strategy: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, I guess is what BRRRR stands for. It's kind of a bigger pockets term. Those guys have been around for a while, and they've been highlighting this strategy for a little while. The idea is that you buy something for very cheap, you renovate it, building in your equity, you rent it, and you then can cash flow the asset, and then you refinance, pulling out all of the money theoretically that you've got. In today's market, it's a little bit more difficult to pull out all of your money, but you certainly can pull out a vast majority of it, and we can talk about that. If you consider 85% the vast majority of it, that's great. We'll talk about an 85% loan to value assumption. If you think that 95 or 100% or even 105% is the vast majority in your world or your language or your aspiration, we can talk about how to change this model to reflect that, and you can take a little bit of cash out. No problem with that. So here we've got the purchase and repair assumptions page. This essentially forms the engine of what we are going to put into the calculator. These are the kind of inputs, if you will, that will go into the machine. So here I'm going to talk to you about. Let's see if I can change the share option. Can I do a new share and go to my? I guess that is my desktop. Let me see if I can. Whoops. Let me go here, and let me see if I can exit out of this for just 1 second. I want to tell you exactly what we're working on. This was a property, 1737 East Marshall. It looked originally like this. And unfortunately, I don't think we have a tremendous amount of exterior photos because we did the marketing before the exterior was really ready. But this is what that property looked like. It was in pretty bad shape. You can see there's not even a gas meter here. So there had been many years where it was unoccupied, and there, oddly enough, I'll tell you the story, there was no gas line, no high pressure gas line that ran to that meter, which was quite problematic and caused us about a 2-week delay. When we were done with the renovation, it looked like this, just so you have an idea. It's about 1,100 square feet. We did everything new, all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new HVAC, all new roof. We extended out the roof line. And we actually took this property off of the demolition list for this buyer, and we coffered the ceilings, making them very nice. We added a back kind of master bedroom. The bathroom is en suite. We put a laundry room in the back with a new hot water tank. You can see the whole thing. So it looks very, very nice. There's a double vanity in this bathroom. It looks very, very nice. I'll run you through the numbers now. I just wanted you to see kind of what we were talking about so you had an idea of what exactly was going on. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to run you through the purchase and repair assumption. So we bought the property for $12,500. We assumed all along that it was going to be an 85% loan to value because that's what our banker gives us. We actually did a construction financing deal on this, and it turned out there was cloudy title, so we had to do some title work. The bank wouldn't loan on it, so we did the whole thing cash, and then in the end, this buyer is pulling out the money, so we're pulling out the money on the back end. So that's what's going on here. 85% loan to value, 15% down payment, meaning we're going to be in this for 15% cash or equity. It depends on how you structure it, how you structure the deal. As I said in the Burr model, if you can pull everything out, about $2,000 of closing costs, and the repairs are $56,128. So that will go to another sheet. This is fed by the construction costs, which we'll review in just a second. And these have changed. I think the model that we're using has changed a little bit. I've just made some tweaks. So these screenshots don't exactly reflect what you're going to see in a second, but in essence, it's 100% the same. The amortization schedule, 20 years, interest rate 5.5%. That's for our loan, and that will calculate through an amortization schedule you'll see in a second. That also feeds into the engine. The monthly rent, $825. You'll see here, or you may have seen that we rented this property for $950. So that will obviously change the numbers as they calculate. Management fee of 10%, leasing fee of $695, and lease renewal fee of $495. The 2018 tax amount was very low because we bought the property for $12,500. I think we actually bought the property for $10,000, and there was $2,500 worth of title work that needed to get done, or something like that. So really, the price was $12,500, but they may have recorded it as 10. I'm not certain about that. And the buyer in this case has a 30% marginal tax bracket. We just use that as a round number, and we go into we use that number to take into account the money that you save by not paying tax at a 30% marginal rate. So this we'll see in just a second. I'll run you through in more detail. This is the engine, so to speak. The next page is the amortization table, which is hard to see, but you can see there's a loan amount at the top, interest rate, months, repayment schedule in both principal and interest, and then there are some construction costs. So let's run through this in real time. Let me see if I can change my screen. Let me share here. Oops, let me go here. Actually, I guess I just keep messing this up. Remove this, and let's go directly to the financial model. So here you see there is, this is the actual engine. How do I make this smaller? Let's go up here. This is the actual engine, and feeding this engine is, again, the assumptions that we make at the beginning that I already ran through, the amortization table, which you can see more clearly here. There's a beginning balance, there's payment, principal, interest. You have to also understand that your loan amount is not going to be 100% accurate based on this number. There's also going to be fees and other things that the bank charge that will be rolled into this original this beginning balance. And so if you wanted to make this beginning balance 100% accurate, you might go here to this LTV assumptions and put in the closing costs. You might put in $2,500 plus call it $1,300 in loan fees, right? Who knows what the bank's going to charge, but whatever they do charge, that's going to go into your total cost, and that should be in your amortization table. If you do it this way, then you're going to only have 85% of that. If you were to go, if you were to build in something else that said closing costs, let's go back, remove that, put in something here that says bank fees. Maybe you put $1,300 here. And this amortization table, just to show you how dynamic this is, you can say, look, it's 85% of my all-in value that the bank sees, plus it's actually 100% of this bank fees amount, right? So you're going to now have this starting balance be inclusive of the bank fees that you just paid. So keep in mind when you're working with this model, this should give you an indication. It's indicative of what you're going to pay, what you're going to pay in principal interest. It will never be to the penny, various reasons, more days, fewer days, whatever it is. But it will tell you order of magnitude what your answer is going to be. So going back here to the pro forma, this is an indication of rent. Again, it takes into account the rent that we put into this assumption. Here I put the 950, which is actually what we're getting for 1737 East Marshall. There's 5% vacancy, although to be totally honest, we rented this in just a couple of days, and so we had no vacancy, but maybe the person leaves, maybe in year 2 they leave. This person has signed an 18-month lease, and so we probably don't need to have this number in here for year 1, but certainly in years 2 and 3. And it's always a great idea to be conservative, because I'm a perfectionist and a little bit OCD. I'm going to change that. So the management fee takes into account a couple of things. In our version, you can see what it is. It takes into account the management fees themselves, a leasing fee 1 year, and then a renewal fee the next year. And we assume that people stay 24 months. So in year 3, you're going to pay a leasing fee. In year 4, you're going to pay a renewal fee, etc. You can change this. If you're managing yourself, you can delete this entirely, however you wish, right? This will become your financial model to use as you choose. The principal and interest both pull from the amortization table. So they go from number 9 to 20. That's actually a mistake. It should go from 8 to 19. Neither here nor there, right? We can make this, we can literally just delete this row, or we can add in, month 0 here, whatever it is. So you can change that, but there still are, the first 12 months are going to be in this pro forma right here in these numbers. So if you take this, the first 12 months will be there. Interest, same thing. Tax is a fixed number that we've just grown by 2%, assuming that it's going to be, a 2% growth. Insurance is $600. If you use State Farm, you're generally going to be in the $50 a month range. Is this number $650 a year? Who knows? It's something about that, and I've just grown it at 2% a year. That could fluctuate. It could change. That's why I always say this number is an approximation. It's indicative of what your numbers are going to look like. And then we've put in a miscellaneous expense. I put this at $250. Why $250 in this case? Because as I showed you before, the plumbing, the HVAC, the electricity, the roof, everything is brand new. I don't think that we're going to have a tremendous amount of miscellaneous expense. On other properties, we might do them all new. And then we have, for example, on another property that we manage on Atlanta, we just took down a tree. It was $1,500. Now, in redoing the plumbing, we didn't understand that there was going to be, or we didn't know that the dead tree would have to come down as quickly as it did. But, now we've got a $1,400 expense. So that number would go up. So let's put $1,400 here and see how that changes everything. So now we have a free cash flow of $67 a month. Before, we had a free cash flow of $163. See how dramatic that can be. It goes from a 16% cash on cash return down here down to a 6%, and your return on your cash totals goes from 45 to 35. So expenses in the low income area can really, or in the, I would say, workforce housing sector, when your rent is $950, a monthly expense of or a one-time expense of $1,400 can really change things. But let me keep running through what's going on. Now, your monthly free cash flow is the cumulative numbers divided by 12. So here we have all of the rent divided by less all of the expenses, which are vacancy management, principal, interest, tax, insurance. And then you have your free cash flow at the end of that. This number here, B12, is simply B14 divided by 12, so you can see it on a monthly basis. But essentially, you have $2,000 a year. Principal payment, principal pay down is in essence a forced savings plan, right? And so you're putting that money into your pocket. In 5 years, you could go back and refinance and pull that money out theoretically, but you're engaging in a forced savings plan. So your actual return is your cash flow, which is your cash on cash return, plus your principal pay down. Now your tax benefit, what you paid in interest expense that you're no longer paying to the US government because that comes out against your income, I would say that's another form of savings. What you don't pay to Uncle Sam, you do, get to put back in your pocket. And then we have an asset appreciation. If we say it's 1% a year, that's $870. If we say it's 2% a year, that's obviously going to be something like $1,700, and that changes your numbers dramatically. Also, who knows how much the property will appraise? We are not in the game of speculation, but rather in the game of cash flow and liability avoidance. So that's why I don't consider that to be something that's tremendously valuable, even though it's, I would say, icing on top. So in this case, we have about $12,000 of cash in the deal. Of course, you'll have to go back and check this because we've just put another number into our LTV assumptions. This bank fee is really cash that you have in the deal. Although I guess it would be part of the loan. So maybe you don't have it. Maybe they pay for 100% of that amortizing over 20 years. So just think that through and follow the trail of the money. In this case, I would say the 16.5% cash on cash return is pretty strong. We like 17% cash on cash. It's better than you can get in the stock market many years, not all years, obviously, but with the tumult that has recently plagued the stock market, where the market was down 1,000 points multiple days in a row. It was the worst week since the 2008 financial crisis. A 16% cash on cash yield looks pretty good. The annual return on cash then is going to be inclusive not just of the cash, but of the other benefits that you get in both principal pay down, which is, as I said, a forced savings plan, and also the tax benefit, which is liability avoidance. Now, if Uncle Sam were to take $1 from me, that's $1 out of my pocket. If I avoid paying that dollar, that is money saved, right? So if I can avoid showing income of the dollar and paying 30 cents on that dollar, that 30 cents is money that I did not shell out. Therefore, a penny saved is a penny earned, and that's money that you've made by not paying it to Uncle Sam through your real estate endeavors. Talk to your CPA about how to do that. Of course, that there's also depreciation. There's also and there's accelerated depreciation, Indian law in the state of Oklahoma, et cetera. So all that stuff, not just interest expense, but you have depreciation, which is not calculated in here, and it's can get complex. But that is another way that you make money, where your actual return on your cash would be significantly higher because of that savings. So here we're showing something like 45% annual return on the cash, 52 with appreciation. And then in many cases, you'll have equity. In many cases, you won't have equity. If you're doing the BRRRR method, you might not have any cash in the deal. You might not have any equity in the deal. Or you might say, hey, I've forced equity in this, so I don't have any cash, but I do have equity. And that's something that the bank, that's just the delta between what the property is worth, what it appraised at according to the bank or according to your personal appraiser, and the debt that you owe on the property. So you might have equity in the deal even though you don't have cash in the deal. Let's just go back. And if you wanted to say you did it the BRRRR method that I described earlier and you had no cash in the deal, you might just put in here, you might just make it 100% loan to value. Change that to 0. Naturally, it goes because the formula works. And then your amortization table is going to say you're in this thing for all the money. I hope that works. Maybe it doesn't. Repairs total cost, that should be 85%. No, because it's hard coded. We don't want to do that. We want to do equals. Let's make this number here. Boom. There we go. So that number will naturally work now. Uh-oh, I want to open up Microsoft Word. That number will naturally work, and when I send this out to you, I'll do this finalized one. I'll do this finalized one, and you'll be able to see. Why is this keep going back? So that's where we stand. The final tab that goes again into our engine is the construction cost. So the construction cost is going to be built in here. Oh, I've somehow broken my model. Oh, oops, because I did this. Let me go back, put this at 85%. The construction costs are going to be here in the repairs category. This pulls directly from C22 of this construction cost. And again, I apologize that not all this stuff makes perfect sense. Some of these are hard coded. It should be 10,000 or this, or whatever it is. You can kind of mess with it. But, the building, if we say that it was actually 12,500, maybe it makes more sense because we had the cost, even though the building didn't, wasn't purchased technically according to the document stamps at 12,500, whatever. So I run through and I put estimates and then actuals for HVAC work that was done. In my estimates category here, sorry, for all stuff that was done, I apologize. We have $5,000 for electric work. HVAC was $7,000. Plumbing was $7,000. A lot of the stuff we get quoted. A lot of the stuff I just know the prices for. I have a tendency to be wrong, as all people in life. But for the most part, we're pretty accurate. And then I build in a 10% total at the end, just to say, look, there are costs that we don't know about. Here, trash service, I thought it was going to be $1,300, which is roughly I guess kind of 3 dump loads, and we had more like 4 dump loads or 5 dump loads. So it just, sometimes the lathe and plaster is more than we expected. It fills up faster, or our construction guys, our demo guys are not as diligent about putting in stuff that's, I don't know, one layer, the right layers. God knows how it happens, but it happens. So we went over in this case. So here, we let me just run through what these categories are: electric, HVAC, plumbing, water service. So sometimes you have to redo the water service entirely. If you don't do that, you've got sediment that builds up in the pipes, and then you put a new shower in, and all of a sudden sediment comes through your shower, blocks up your shower cartridges, and you're paying a plumber to come back and change the cartridges all over again. And the whole point of doing a renovation in its entirety is that you avoid all of these recurring costs that can be prevalent when you do lower scale renovations or just not full renovations. So sometimes I, put a bathroom into an older house. I love the tile job, and then I realized that we have to tear the tile out because the lines that are feeding the water, the manifold or the shower head are somehow busted, and all of a sudden we're going back and redoing the thing again, which is very annoying. So I like to do everything 100% from the start so that we're not encountering that scenario. So in this case, we didn't have to redo the water service. It was fine, but sometimes we do, and I estimate for that. We reframed the back area. We lifted the roof, reframed it, and we actually then called for the ceilings as a result. We put a new roof on. The hot water tank, I estimate $1,000. I actually just, in the end, we put that into construction materials because we got the hot water tank from Home Depot along with everything else that we bought. Same thing with the windows. I think we paid $150 a window, and there were 25 windows, and so it's all in this construction materials cost, which is why there's a $6,500 overrun there. We ended up not doing a gas pressure test because we had to rerun the lines anyways. We reran all the gas lines, and as I said, O&G had to run a high pressure line and then change the positioning of the meter. We paid $3,000 for sheetrock. In the end, we had sheetrock delivered, and then Pasquale's team came and had to move all the sheetrock, then moved all the excess out, and so we paid him a couple $100 extra for doing that manual labor. The labor was we estimated at $15,000, ended up being an extra $3,000. That included a lot of work that we didn't initially anticipate, but we're happy to do because we wanted to make this property really, really nice to get $950. Siding we didn't end up doing. Landscaping we did. It was a little bit extra. Trash service, as I said, a little extra. We didn't do any pest control. It wasn't necessary, and we didn't find any sign of termite activity, although at some point we might do that because, as my friend Lee says at Swamp Pest Patrol, insects abhor a vacuum, or nature abhors a vacuum, and wherever you don't have pest control or termite control stuff, sometimes pests will come, or he would say always pests would come. We did end up putting in an alarm system. It was $550 with a year of monitoring, and then we put in $1,000 worth of appliances. So that's how you get to all the construction, and then you come back and you've got your repairs there with the full with your all-in cost of the property. If you were to add in the bank fees, you get the all-in cost of the property and the loan, right? So that's where we stand. That's how we do the pro formas. You can mess around when you can say, look, if I'm in this thing for instead of $75,000, $60,000, what do my returns look like? And you say, well, it looks like 30% cash on cash. Well, how do I save $15,000? I can, use an old hot water tank. I can not repair the roof. The roof looks fine. There's, white 3-tab on there. It looks kind of ugly, but it will serve its purpose. So you can do all sorts of stuff to, I don't want to say cut corners, because you're not necessarily cutting corners in a negative way, but you're shaving price, you're value engineering, you're shaving dollars off the cost of the work that you're doing, even though you have a nice end product. You can also do things like changing the rent. What happens if we don't get $950? We anticipate getting $950. The comps show that we get $950. When we have a brand new property, we think that we'll get $950, but what happens if we don't? Well, if you don't and you've only spent $60,000, your return goes to 20%. Why do I keep doing that? If we go back here, let's go back a couple things, not that far back. If we're in it for $75,000 in renovation costs and we only get $850 a month, what does that do to our return? It goes down. It's an 8% cash on cash return. Again, if you look at your annual return, which includes your principal pay down and your tax benefit, 40% is still really good. 37% is still really good. Where else are you going to get that in the market or in other places? I would say, still a pretty strong return, but 8% on your cash, you'd like a little bit more than that. That's great, but you'd like a little bit more than that. And if you have unexpected If you have unexpected costs, then all of a sudden your cash on cash return goes down into the negative, into the red, and your annual cash returns at 30%. Fine, still looks okay, honestly, as a total return vis-a-vis other options that you have for your dollars, but not fantastic. So let's go back on that and say, whoops, and go back and change other assumptions. So there are, at some point, sorry, let me finish my thought before I go on. There are other things that you can change, flex, sensitize, whatever. This is the 2018 tax amount, but in 2019 or 2020, when they realize that we've done a bunch of work, are they going to raise the value of our taxes to reflect the fact that we're an $80,000 or $90,000 property? The bank appraised this property at 85 in reality, or 86, and so we're pretty spot on in terms of our numbers. We might have a couple $1,000s left in this deal, and that's fine with us as in this example, it's fine with us as the buyers, but other people might not, be okay with having cash in the deal. If this number goes to $700 or even $1,000, what does that look like? Well, it drops your return, right? As you understand, as you would expect, the tax number increases, it drops your monthly cash flow, it drops your annual cash flow, and all of a sudden your cash on cash return has gone down. So these are things that you can sensitize for, that you can look at and decide when you're buying a house, what do you want to flex for to ensure that your numbers still look good even if something unforeseen happens. What happens if we say, look, our purchase price is actually, we're buying a really nice Broken Arrow house. Our purchase price is $110,000. Our closing costs are still $2,500. Our bank fees are this. We're actually not doing any repairs. So let's go back through and let's just say we're here at $110,000. What if we're on a conventional note? So right now conventionals are at 30 years. Let's call them 3.85. And it might even be dropping further. I think with the recent collapse in the stock market, we might drop further. I would hope that if you buy a $110,000 house, you're at least at $1,100 in rent. Management fees, leasing fees, renewal fees are the same. What is a house that's at $110,000 have tax? What is it taxed at? Let's look. Let's go to I don't know. Let's go to somewhere in Broken Arrow. Can we go to 305 South? I don't know what any of these. I don't know what I'm gonna find here, but let's even if that works, let's see. Okay, that is a property. It's assessed at $119,000. Cool, pretty close, and they're paying $1,728. Obviously, this is going to vary depending on where you are because the taxes vary based on your neighborhood. Let's delete this. Let's put this. Let's go here. Boom. So if we go here back to our engine, that tax is going to be reflected, and you're going to see some growth, and so it affects your numbers. So if we go back and say we're getting $1,100 in rent, our tax is $1,728. We've got $112,000 in the deal. What does this deal look like? 16-17% cash on cash. That looks pretty good. You've got, in this case, cash in the deal is $15,500. You've got to be able to come up with that cash. But if you've got that cash and you're able to buy a property that's $110,000, pretty good. If you look here, also the amortization table will have changed. Your loan value is $96,000. Your interest rate in your months, this is indicative or reflective of the 30-year note, and so your obviously your principal and your interest payments will change. You get into the scenario where the purchase price and the rents don't move in tandem. So if you buy a $320,000 house down in Jinx, you're only going to get, call it $2,500 in rent. Your taxes are going to be $1,734. I mean, let's say 56. Maybe not that much. $5,000 a year. What does that look like in terms of a pro forma? Even if you're on, really, I shouldn't do this. This is really an 80%, unless you're on an FHA loan. Whoops. Let me go back. Whoops. I went back too far. If you're on an 80% loan, then you're 20% down payment, unless you're on an FHA and you can be at 3%, or you're at some sort of USDA loan or whatever. But you've got a lot of rent, but your return is going to be slightly lower because the return as your rent as a portion of your total asset value is less, right? So you can just flex and use this model to figure out what it looks like to buy stuff. What if you buy stuff? A friend of ours recently bought something for $37,500. He's at 85%. He did $6,000 in repairs approximately, and he's getting, I don't know if his closing costs are that high, but let's just say it is. He's at 5.5%. He's getting $825 in rent. We just rented it. What does that look like in terms of his pro forma? Oh, that's not good because his tax is too high. But his taxes are going to be back in the range of, call it $500 a year. So at that price, he's got a very strong cash on cash return. This property that he bought in kind of near North Tulsa, I would call it, and you can watch my investment video to see how I classify various parts of Tulsa and where the investment opportunities are good. But this property, we just did lipstick on a pig. So we changed some of the windows. We polyurethaned, we sanded and polyurethaned the floors. We redid the kitchen. We put a coat on the bathroom, on the tub, and we did an acid etching coat. We built a wall, moved the shower a little bit, put a new vanity in. It's like basic stuff. We painted basic stuff that makes the house livable and really nice. But if we have a plumbing issue, we're going to have to pull some of that out, and it could add to those numbers. So the repairs go from $6,000 to $8,000, and the pro forma numbers, drop his return. It was 52%. Now it's 50. It was 57%, drops to 52%. So that is something that you have to consider. These return numbers are high theoretically, but if you're buying properties that you're doing just a little bit of lipstick on the pig work, so to speak, the pro forma and the reality might not match. If your pro forma starts at a 57 number cash on cash return, then you're probably okay, and you're okay when it drops down to 52% or 50% or 45%. You're still sitting really pretty. This is a total return of about a year. So who really cares? It's very, very, very strong. I think that's about it, unless there are any questions. Robert, if you want to pop on and
no questions as of yet through the chat, man.
Love it.
Unless someone wants to ask directly.
Love it. So if there's any comments below, if there are any comments, you can leave them below. You can always reach out to us. info@KeyrenterTulsa.com. I'm at Matt, M-A-T, at KeyrenterTulsa.com, and we can send this calculator out for everybody to use. Happy investing, happy buying. Enjoy yourselves until we meet again. Thanks very much. See you soon.